Hello and welcome to Devo Thoughts. Last week we talked about bearing fruit, the fruit of the Holy Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, meekness, gentleness, faithfulness, and temperance or self-control. We talked about how these are the characteristics of God and how bearing fruit is essentially exhibiting these characteristics in our own lives. But what happens when these fruit aren't actually good fruit? What happens when there's sour fruit? How does that happen, and how can we fix that if we are bearing sour fruit? And there's a passage in Isaiah 5 that I want to read. It's quite a few verses, but it says this: "Now let me sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved regarding his vineyard. My well-beloved has a vineyard on a very fruitful hill. He dug it up and cleared it out of stones and planted it with the choicest vine, and he built a tower in its midst, and he also made a winepress in it. So he expected it to bring forth good grapes, but it brought forth sour grapes. And now it happens of Israel, or Jerusalem, and the men of Judah, judge, please, between me and my vineyard. What more could have been done to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Why then, when I expected it to bring forth good grapes, it brought forth sour grapes? And now, please let me tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will take away its hedge, and it shall be burned, and break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. I will make ways, and it shall not be pruned or dug. But there shall come up bears and thorns. I shall command the clouds that they rain no rain on it. For the vineyard of the Lord of his hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah are his pleasant plant. He looked for justice, but behold oppression, for righteousness, but behold a cry for help." So we have this scenario here where God plants a vineyard. Right? And he says he does everything in his power. He chooses the choicest vine. He takes out all the stones and the weeds, and he's taking good care of his vineyard to ensure that it grows the choicest fruit, the good grapes. But for some strange reason, it's bearing sour grapes. And he's like, what more could I have done? I've done everything in my power to make sure these are bearing good fruit, but for some strange reason, there's sour fruit, there's sour grapes. What more could I have done? And then he interprets what this metaphor means by saying, look, you are the vineyard. You, my people, are the vineyard. And I've done everything in my power to ensure that you bear good fruit. The fruit of the Holy Spirit. I've poured out my love to you. I've poured out my life for you. And I've tried my best to show you what it means to bear good fruit. I've tried my best to live an example and for you to imitate that example through me empowering you to do so. I've done everything that I can to make sure that you bear this fruit. But there's sour grapes. What's going on? And if anyone knows about the whole grape growing aspect, grapes are sour. They start off sour. That's just a normal part of their growing process. But as the grapes begin to ripen and mature, they grow sweeter. So it's kind of like the riper the grape, the sweeter the fruit. And so the problem isn't necessarily that the grapes are sour. The problem is they've ceased to mature, they've ceased to grow, they've ceased to ripen. Right? So how does this apply to our lives? What does this mean for us? Well, essentially what it means is we should never think that we've got it down pat. We can never think that, oh, I've been in church for X amount of years, I've done, mission trips, I've preached, I've taught, I've, been doing all these things for God. I'm a good Christian. I got this thing in the bag, man. Because what happens when we start thinking that way is we cease to grow. You know, we see it as like a goal to reach. And once you reach that goal, we cease to pursue a further relationship with God, a closer walk with God, because we think we've already reached that point, you know? And so what God is saying here is, look, you're sour because you stopped growing. In order for you to become the sweet grapes that I desire for you to be, we need to continuously grow closer to me, continuously grow and produce fruit. Because the more you grow, the more you ripen, the riper you are, the sweeter fruit you bear. And the sweeter fruit you bear, the more likely someone's actually going to want to partake of that fruit. You know, because this idea is that God's pouring into us His character, and we're supposed to do the same for others. But if we cease to bear good fruit, no one's going to want to eat sour grapes, right? They want that sweet grapes. And so in order for us to truly portray God's character, we have to be continuously on, continuously on it daily. Every moment of our lives, choosing to be more like God and allowing Him to work in us and through us to actually fulfill that in us. So, yeah, just think on these things, and I just pray that we will all be able to be sweet fruit and bear the fruit of the Holy Spirit.